From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
The Tiger Cats have 4 games remaining in the regular season and could clinch a playoff spot on Saturday when they host the Calgary Stampeders at 7 o'clock at Tim Hortons Field. I'm RJ Broadhead. He's Luke Tasker. Welcome to Ticats This Week. Luke, welcome back. We missed you last week. You obviously are the good luck charm.
I guess so. Yes, they failed to get the win without Luke in the booth. maybe that's the answer. Good stat to keep, actually.
I was around the team a bit. Yeah, it is a good stat, especially for your contract coming up. No, don't worry, everybody. Luke's going to be around a long time. No contract issue here. No holdout. Being around the team after that Toronto loss, they didn't miss a step. The confidence is still there. They know what's up this week. It's just one of those teams that seems to every game, the same things happen. They jump out to a big lead, and then the Tiger Cats just can't catch up. But yeah, everybody said it. There's one game that matters, and they're hoping to meet them again, and that would be the East Final. And boy, that would be the best revenge you could get, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it sure would. After a tough season series with Toronto, and I agree with last week's game. And you isolate the 2 interceptions that effectively didn't just lead to points. I mean, we're almost directly points, right? Like just the interception for a touchdown, and then the following play after the second interception. Isolate those 2 along with the 70-yard pass, and now you take out those 3 plays, and that game's a toss-up. So it's not it. As a player, you bounce back from that and saying, well, that's just 3 mistakes. It's not like we got beat, 75% of the plays in that game. We got beat for that little 5% plays. That little, what's less than that actually, just those 3 plays. And if we can fix just some of those isolated problems, it's a different game. So I do think as a player, it's kind of maybe an easier one to bounce back from when it's so tangible what went wrong.
With possibly clinching a playoff spot, a few things have to go the Tiger Cats' way. Obviously, they have to beat Calgary, and that would have a double impact because then it would stop the crossover. So in that game, Calgary on Saturday is going to be desperate. They're basically playing to keep their crossover and playoff hopes alive. And the Tiger Cats, they don't want to mess around with this. They want to get a playoff spot clinched. They would also need Montreal to win and Saskatchewan to win. But if Hamilton, Montreal, Saskatchewan all win, then Hamilton is in. I'm gonna be like the CNN and go ahead, and I'm going to say the polls say Tiger Cats are in the playoffs. Everybody wants to be first. Ticats Audio Network, Luke, is going to be first. Tiger Cats are making the playoffs. You want to debate that?
I wish I could, but I'm on board with you with that. But here's an interesting one for you, RJ. So you need a Montreal win and a Hamilton win, and the Ticats are in the playoffs because they cannot be worse than Ottawa, and we have the tiebreaker with Ottawa. But the interesting thing is that second place in the East is not out of the question, and to do that, you'd want a Montreal loss potentially, right? And so the last game of the season, this is building towards, is a Montreal-Hamilton game. 2 things. It'd be really fun if that game is meaningful and those 2 teams are playing for a bye week the following week. That's the best. And we did that with Montreal in 2014. The last game of the season, we were playing each other for a bye week to then play each other again potentially in the Eastern Final. So, and excuse me, that wouldn't be for a bye week. It would just be for the home game this year. But it would be for you're playing each other to play at home the following week, right? It's a really exciting game. And to do that, you got to keep this balanced in the Ottawa, Montreal, Hamilton battle here. So I don't know. I know that a Montreal winning will, along with Hamilton winning, would secure the playoffs. That's great, and you want that. But I want to hold on for that home game in the playoffs and a chance to chase down Montreal. So interesting little love triangle going on here.
Yeah, it could be almost like a 2-game playoff series if that last game of the regular season can be for the home playoff game, because the way things are going right now, it's going to be Hamilton, Montreal playing in the East semifinal. We don't know who will be the home team. So that last game, Hamilton, we know, has to win outright. So all they have to do is be tied with Montreal. Even if they're a win ahead of Montreal, Montreal can still win that last game and get the home playoff game.
Yes.
So basically, be tied, be a game ahead, win that last game, and the Tiger Cats have the home playoff game. I asked Jameer Thurman. I love talking to Jameer Thurman because he is always striving for perfection. I'm sure you played with guys like this, Luke. He is an absolute pro. Hey, you had a great game against Winnipeg. Yeah, but we left plays out there. We could be better. It's always striving, always knowing that you can be better, because that Winnipeg game was great, but it's kind of how I've always thought. I don't know if that was your thought process as a player as well, that, hey, we were good, but we still missed some plays.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and there's that interview voice that you hear from players sometimes, just saying the right things, and that's fine. But you can also tell when it's authentic, and you do feel it as a player. Sometimes it's really disheartening. I remember having really great games personally, like, stat-wise or whatever, and losing. And it does not have the same, luster and feel of when you win. And I certainly remember very mediocre games of mine where we won, and that's a relieving feeling too. So yeah, it just comes down to one thing in the end, and I think Jameer Thurman's certainly a guy who embodies that type of mentality of, it's all about winning firstly.
Yeah, that game last week, Toronto's played almost near flawless football as far as the record is concerned. They've been really, really good, and Tiger Cats have been searching and trying to find their game and trying to gel, and the runway's getting short. 4 games to go. We've seen some good games from the Tiger Cats, that BC game, the last home game against Winnipeg. Is your gut telling you that they could peak at the right time, or are you getting concerned with there's only a few games left in the regular season and there's still some inconsistencies?
Well, compare this game against Toronto to their first matchups against Toronto. It's very different, and the deficit in the first quarter this past week, that's a crusher. That really hurts. But like I said, if you don't have that coverage breakdown, if you make Chad Kelly drive the whole field and instead of that 70-yard pass for a touchdown, it might be different. He was turning the ball over in that game. Actually, the Mark Washington's defense was stealing the ball away from Toronto effectively. And again, and then if you can avoid those turnovers that directly led to 14 points for the Argos, very different. And I say that because early in this season, you can think back to the first game in Toronto. It was not. You didn't have that feeling. I mean, you couldn't watch that game and say, just change one or two things. No, it was really Toronto was dominating that game, and so I certainly look at this in a positive light with what Hamilton could do in this last stretch of the season, and if they can protect the football. And Taylor Powell, as he's set to continue to be the starter here, and I'm just excited to continue to watch him as he gets closer to the postseason. I think it's sort of a hopeful question mark as to what this team could be still this year.
Yeah, Taylor Powell's been good. Matt Schultz is ready to go. Toronto makes a lot of teams look pretty average. They've been excellent this year. Taylor Powell talks about learning and not being afraid to make mistakes, and maybe that safety was a learning moment where he got the intentional grounding in the end zone. You could argue that, but certainly the 2 points wound up with the Argos. That was a learning experience, I'm sure, for a young quarterback. But it was interesting what the Argos did, Luke. To me, it was obvious. They studied the Tiger Cats and said, okay, Powell is playing really well. He's very consistent with his completion percentage. We're going to make that tough on him. James Butler, you're not going to beat us. We're going to make sure that we contain James Butler. Tim White, you're not going to beat us. We're going to take you right out of the game. So if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us with somebody else. And Keandre Smith really emerged as a target that can be a weapon for the Tiger Cats. So there's the positive there, is that Keandre Smith, 156 yards receiving, but that was my guess without talking to the Argos, that's what they said. We're going to take all your top statistical players and take them out of the game, and if you can beat us, it's going to be with guys who haven't put up the big numbers. And in Keandre's case, he did show he can do it, but it's a good strategy if you're the Argos.
It is, and it's a hopeful thing for the Ticats that guys like Keandre Smith, Terry Godwin with a touchdown, and kind of an ability to spread the football around a little bit more. I think you gotta have it. I mean, the years where our offense, when I was playing, was the best was we had so many answers with Braylon and Speedy and Andy, myself, and in different groups of time, Taekwon Underwood, and every year it seemed like somebody rose to the occasion to sort of fill in some of those spots. And it is game by game. I mean, honestly, it is. You get in a matchup one night, and as we've seen many times, Tim White, his number just keeps getting called. And as you have a game like that, soon that player, you can make. It's not just that he's open. Sometimes he's just making a catch, in spite of being double covered. You just get, that's just athletics. That's sports. That's what we love about it, is that players can do the unlikely thing at times. But to have the answers and to see a guy like Keandre Smith have a night like that is definitely bodes well, especially late in the season like this for the Ticats. James Butler, that's been something so interesting about the season for the Ticats, is that it's just everything or nothing in the run game. It's like it's hard to have those games where there's like a nice consistent 75-yard night for James Butler with 300 yards passing. It's been either 120 or like 20, and so it's the complementary running and passing approach is I still would like to see more of that. And late in the season, if the Ticats can make a Grey Cup run this year and go win the Grey Cup, James Butler is going to have to play a part in that. I really believe it. It's going to have to be a productive run game to make that happen.
You played with Simone Lawrence. He's now top 10 all time in tackles in the CFL. That's amazing with all the players who have played in the league, and he's cracked into the top 10. And he seems to be getting better as this season's gone on. Almost like, I'm gonna do everything I can to get into the playoffs and get into that home game, which is the Grey Cup game. That's his focus. But what an accomplishment when you think all time and top 10.
Yeah, I've been particularly impressed with Simone this year. Like, just, you never know. Like, every player gets to a season where, physically you start to see a drop off, or just energy wise. And it's not only not been that way, it's been the opposite. I mean, he stands out, as you watch the game, just with his speed and his energy. I'm just so impressed with what he's done. It clearly is not nearing the end of Simone Lawrence's ability to play at a high level. He is one of the best in the league at this very moment, even as the 10th all time with tackles. I mean, it's just an awesome thing to watch.
Tyreek McAllister had a big return that was brought back on a penalty, and Andy was doing the game with me last week, Luke, when you were away. He didn't like it, but I couldn't help but visualize what your reaction would be, because that hidden yardage wound up being about a 60-yard penalty. He's been in the end zone at least 3 times this season with 2 points to show for it. Like, he's good for an explosive play, but if they can just limit those penalties, he's going to get some points for them, or at least set them up to get some points. It's just, poor guy. He's done all this running, and it's at least 3 big returns that have been called back due to penalties.
Well, it's a sneaky little part of football, special teams penalties, and I really think that the teams that end up winning Grey Cups and making runs late in the season are teams that eliminate those type of things. Those are mistakes that the winning teams in October and November, those are mistakes they're not making. And like you said, it's the hidden yardage. It's a level of just discipline and execution that is just 2% more, just a little bit more, because that return and the returns that we've seen from McAllister, that's good execution. That's good football all around the board, minus one little decision, one little miss by one of the 12 guys on the field. It's really such a slight edge. It's amazing. But the damage that causes, I've said in broadcasts with you and I in the booth on game day, you just can't outplay it. Like, it's like, it's not like a a missed block by an offensive lineman, the running back may be able to outplay that. He may be able to miss the tackle anyways and make the play happen. In penalties in the return game, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't outplay one guy making a bad decision. Doesn't matter. So, it's more damage. It's just as damaging as a turnover. It can be just as damaging, as a touchdown one way or the other. It's that impactful. And unfortunately, it's a very difficult part of the game, or not unfortunately, just the reality of football. You're asking human adult men who are hyper athletic to sprint down the field and try to stop each other. I mean, you're going to get in a compromised situation every now and again. And so it's just a really, really challenging part of the sport. But if the Jeff Reinbold special teams, if these Ticats can stop doing that, you may have McAllister be able to bust a play open that's going to change the course of a season as these games start to really matter. So it's super interesting. And yeah, RJ, I'm probably going to lose my head in the booth if we see it. I'm going to have to mute my mic in the booth if we see a special teams costly penalty like that. It's just it's really hard to watch.
Well, for anyone listening to Ticats this week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker in the booth, when there's a big return on special teams, Luke always does a scan of the field before he says too much. Looking for those flags, scanning.
I know.
No? Okay, good. I can praise this play, but
yeah,
he also hangs his head when there's the flag, and you tend to know what it is.
It's PTSD. You walk as a receiver, walking out of the field to the 35-yard line, and then realizing, oh no, we're going back to the 15-yard line.
Yeah,
you got to do this more work, and before we can get points. So we'll see, though. I think that I know for a fact the way that Jeff Reinbold approaches penalties in his meeting rooms, and it's not taken lightly. And if you can just avoid some of those critical errors, it could be a big difference maker with a guy like Tyreek.
Well, definitely, Luke, you've educated me in that aspect, and I'm sure some of the listeners on the Ticats Audio Network who are loyal listeners, you explain it so well. So it is an important part, and hopefully no more of those penalties for the Tiger Cats on special teams. Let's talk about the game on Saturday, 7 o'clock against Calgary. It was one of those that I think most of us had circled on our calendar when the schedule came out, and Bo Levi Mitchell was signed by the Tiger Cats. It's the one meeting between the Tiger Cats and the Stampeders this year, but unfortunately, Bo's still injured. He won't play, but there's actually so much significance for this game. Calgary playing for their playoff lives, basically. Hamilton trying to catch Montreal for second place, trying to clinch a playoff spot. What are you looking for in this game?
Well, some playoff level consistency, some playoff level execution, and to me that means a positive turnover ratio by the time that this game is done. Coach O is famously saying, not all penalties and not all turnovers are created equal, and that was very, very evident in the game in Toronto this past week, lost by Hamilton. Those two turnovers were not just turnovers; those interceptions were 14 points directly, and so you got to avoid turning the ball over and those kind of costly situations. And we'll see. I think I go back to the games that we've seen Mark Washington's defense at its best. It is one of the best in the league. I mean, we've seen them stop BC's offense, Winnipeg's offense. The only offense they've really have never had success against so far in a total game is Toronto's, but at times they even have. Chad Kelly wasn't productive for 4 straight quarters in Toronto this past week, and so if you can just get some consistency, avoid that big play against for the defense. And we'll see. It's the nature of football. A lot of this is going to come down to Taylor Powell. That's the nature of it. The quarterback is going to goes a long way, and so would love to see another good performance by him.
Well, Luke, can't wait to see you on Saturday and call this game, and maybe we call a playoff clincher for the Tiger Cats. We'll know because it's the last game of the week in the CFL.
Going to be fun, RJ. Can't wait to call a good one and see this Hamilton crowd this weekend.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for listening to Ticats this week. If you can be at Tim Hortons Field, you'll want to be there. It could be a playoff clincher for the Hamilton Tiger Cats as they continue their quest for the Grey Cup. If you can't be there, we'll have the game for you on the Ticats Audio Network. Listen.ticats.ca. Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantuz have the pregame show at 6. Luke Tasker and myself, RJ Broadhead, have the call at 7.
It's been another busy week for your Hamilton Tiger Cats. Luke Tasker and RJ Broadhead have covered it all, and now we would like to hear from you. Email us anytime at gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.